Hi poets, welcome to my crib. I wanted to start this harvest by taking you in to my home, and that is Copenhagen, the places where I go to create, to ground myself, to make decisions, to be inspired, and to exist. So I have come up with a guided tour of deep listening, but in the compositional sense coined by a pioneer called Pauline Oliveros.
But what can be trained is listening. Our listening is the kind. I think that listening is probably very close to what we call consciousness.
She queered the landscape by blurring the lines between composer and performer, something that has opened the path to many of us. And I think that for writing, it's also very essential and exciting to explore because it allows us to center ourselves, to find a tuning, to um, listen from a focal and also global perspective. I have developed this trip also a bit like a game so that you too can be activated. So come with me and let us enjoy this very hot summer in Copenhagen together.
Today we will explore deep listening as developed by composer and sonic visionary Pauline Oliveros. Focused in experimental and electronic music, founder of the Deep Listening Institute and a pioneer of feminist sonic praxis. By contrast to secularized mindfulness or Buddhist Zen practices, which focus on inner stillness, breath, and thought awareness, Oliveros' deep listening is especially sonic and compositional. It trains one to perceive all sounds, present, remembered, imagined, across focal and global attention. It is also activist and community focused, a resistance against passive, distraction driven listening culture, fostering listening communities where every voice and every sound counts. Pauline Oliveira's queerness was just not about her lesbian identity, which she embraced openly in the 20th century, in the middle of an experimental music world, but it was also deeply embedded in her aesthetic and epistemological resistance. Her music and writings challenged normative hierarchies of sound, composer, performer, and audience, queering the boundaries between them. Through practices like deep listening, she advocated for a fluid, embodied, and relational way of perceiving and making sound, insisting on difference as generative. Her feminist and queer commitments were inseparable from her belief in inclusivity and presence. In sonic practice, everyone and everything is heard. She queered listening itself, not as mastery or control, but as vulnerability, attunement, and reciprocity. Our journey through Copenhagen will model how you can train perceptual acuity and then translate that into reflective writing. Let your attention notice one sound, then gradually expand to include all ambient sound. We're now at Assistens Kierkegaard, which is a cemetery, but it's also an absolute hangout spot in like all seasons actually, but especially the summer, both for Danes and tourists. It's the home of the grave of Niels Bohr and Hans Christian Andersen, whom we're about to visit. And that beautiful walk, surrounded by trees, is actually where I came to decide whether or not I was gonna stay in Denmark. So it's a very powerful space for me. I love the amount of nature we have access to, and now I love its proximity to my house because I'm like a block away from where I live. But this is also where I come to write and when I come to ponder about life and things that are important to me. And I felt that you would love this place too. Oliveros included remembered or imagined sounds in the sonic field, an epistemic break from materialist listening. Rooted in sonic meditations from the early 70s, which decenters the boundary between outer and inner sound. Hasse Andersen, or Hans Christian Andersen as we know him in English, was a storyteller whose tales evoke inner emotional worlds. At his grave, we can connect the outer memorial with our inner narrative landscapes. Hans Christian Andersen's queerness, while less explicitly claimed, emerges powerfully through his diaries, his letters, and stories. Scholars have increasingly read his fairy tales through a queer lens, full of characters who are outsiders, misfits, shapeshifters, longing for connection but never quite belonging. Tales like The Little Mermaid resonate with queer themes of transformation, silencing, and yearning. Andersen's grave, then, becomes a fitting site in this workshop, a place where silence holds multiplicity, where memory and listening can reclaim narratives that were once hidden. Both Oliveros and Andersen crafted worlds where difference is not corrected but honored, and where listening, be it sonic or poetic, becomes a queer practice of witnessing the in-between. Møllegade is long known as the literary street of Copenhagen. It serves as a gathering space for writers and artists. So now we are in Møllegade in Nørrebro. This is the street of literature. Right behind me, the literature house. And let me take you to my gallery. This is where Red Door magazine exists. It is also a gallery, a publishing house, and home of the Poetic Phonothek, an international multimedia archive of poetry in video and film. Red Door is also more than a venue. It's a multifaceted cultural platform, a quarterly arts magazine, a gallery exhibiting all sorts of creative expressions, the home for the Retransmissions podcast, and a space for local gathering with the purpose of transcending physical distance, democratizing access to poetry in domestic spaces, and fostering international literary exchange. To listen locally and globally as an act of activism, of resistance, of existence. And say hello to some of my typewriters. As you enter the butterfly house, slow your breath and soften your eyes. Observe stillness among fluttering wings. Let your hearing become more delicate, more porous. Tune into the micro actions, the almost invisible tremble of wings, the subtle shift of air, the silence between flutterings. Notice how sound can be present even in near silence. Listen not only with your ears and eyes, but with your skin, your breath, your attention. Pauline Olivero's deep listening practice includes what she called micro-listening, attuning to subtle, often overlooked sonic phenomena such as breath rhythms, the creak of a chair, or the pause between heartbeats. In her later work, she wrote of the importance of cultivating somatic acuity, listening that includes the entire body, not only as a receptor, but as a resonant space. This idea draws partly from her engagement with Aikido and martial arts, where practitioners learn to sense intention and motion in their environment before it's visible or audible in conventional terms. Oliveros brought this into her listening scores by emphasizing how a shift in posture, the tension in a breath, or the energy of silence might constitute music. Listening becomes a full body presence, an ecological multisensory act. The butterfly house is a perfect site to practice this kind of awareness. Butterflies don't speak, but they communicate through subtlety, color, stillness, lift. Listening here is not about sound as volume, but about presence as vibration. This is pollinated listening. Listening that's relational, gentle, and non-intrusive. We are now in the bunker underground at Fellapakén, a space forged for shelter and collectivity, echoing the communal spirit that animates our listener poets network. Here, I want to plant a seed. Take this space to write a short intention manifesto, a personal letter to yourself, affirming your identity and purpose as a listener poet. Consider these prompts. What core values guide your presence and poetic listening? Which sources of strength will you call upon when attention wanes? How can you re-enter your creative practice when it feels distant or strained? Oliveros valued journaling as a means to ground sonic insights into lived identity. Writing becomes a vector for habitual listening, not just a one-off experience. This manifesto is a living contract, a reminder of why you listen, the values you hold, and how you will return when the practice feels out of reach. My offering to you now is to play an experimental improvised piece centered on the thoughts of our journey together as they conclude and begin today. Jenny, thank you for holding space for poetry to heal, to become a vessel. Ravenna, thank you for opening doors with intention, desire, and will. Dylan K, thank you for your openness about conversations on vulnerability, on change. Dylan T, thank you for the conversations on deep listening and for starting conversations on Slack. Ellen, thank you for reminding us that we are lighthouses. Rebecca, thank you for strengthening our memory, for courage, for truth. Elizabeth, thank you for bringing us closer as a community. for speaking to us of purpose. Kevin, thank you for your curiosity and openness. Catherine, thank you for your garden of kindness. Sophie, thank you for resonance, repetition, and meaning making. Nix, when we most need it, thank you for reminding us. I am not a burden. None of us are.